This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. It is decision time for many top prospects that SMU is after. And we'll talk a lot about that on this podcast as we reset where things stand in recruiting after official visits have really wrapped up for Rhett Lashley and his staff. But first, got to remind you guys that we are presented by our friends at StatusJet, statusjet.com. Reach out to David Henry and his team there to get the lowdown on how they can help you plan your summer vacation for the 4th of July. You still have time. They can work with you at the drop of a hat to get you from point A to point B with a level of luxury, attention to detail, and all the things that you'd expect from a private charter company. With StatusJet, you have a chance to use the code PonyUpACC and get a discount on a round-trip flight. So reach out to them today. Know it sounds crazy sometimes, but maybe it is the right option for you, your family, your friends to travel this summer in a private jet experience, big jet, small jet, or even helicopter experiences. They can handle it all for you at statusjet.com. We appreciate them supporting us at ontheponyexpress.com as well as SMU Athletics. I mentioned decision time is coming for many top prospects, and during the month of June is that time when prospects can finalize their decision, can see their recruitment pick up even, and maybe you see another visit thrown into the mix or a big offer come from a camp. And for these seniors, it is kind of down to that crunch time in recruitments, and things can change a lot in this month. And I said in May, before SMU hosted their 2 official visit weekends in May, the 10th and the 17th, I said, for SMU, you want to see them get to double-digit commitments out of these weekends, and you would love to then go into the month of June laying the foundation for other commitments to jump on board, because if prospects take it into June, normally they will then set a decision date at some point in late June, early July, for some point in the coming weeks to come to get it wrapped up before their senior seasons. And that's pretty much what happened. SMU added some more commitments to their class. Obviously, Keelan Russell flipped away from SMU. That was a big storyline, obviously, that happened, but they were able to come away with Sael Reyes, Zay Gentry. They also picked up Drew Hill and Jacob Mayava from those official visit weekends. They got to 12 commitments. Then Keelan Russell flipped away. And SMU still among the top classes in the country, sitting at 34th nationally right now on the On3 industry ranking. And then you saw them host more prospects in June, and you saw decision dates set mostly for July 1st, and we'll touch on that in a bit. But I want to say something because the board is kind of in an interesting place right now. And we'll talk and lead off with SMU's commitments that they have on board right now. You have 4-star wide receiver Dalen Singleton, who talked with a source, similar source that told me about Tyron Polley potentially flipping to TCU, which was right on the money. Mentioned Dalen Singleton as one to watch. He's not one to watch for TCU. They're not after him. The Mustangs are very much in a good spot to hang on to him. He's one of the most explosive prospects in the state of Texas. He was out at SMU's 7-on-7 tournament on Friday, and I believe he caught something like 7 touchdowns on like eight passes directed, and all of them were just go balls down the middle of the field on the outside. He was just blowing by players. So Dalen Singleton locked in. Sael Reyes locked in, a big, strong safety on the back end for DeSoto that jumped on board and has had some huge offers on his plate for a while. Zay Gentry committed to SMU on that Pony Express weekend. took an official visit to Wisconsin, took a visit to Kentucky, told me on Friday he's locked in with SMU. Tyron Polley took that TCU official visit quietly. Word got out, and SMU was able to hang on to him, at least as of now, the Duncanville safety, staying committed to SMU. He is someone to watch. TCU's not going to give up. Other programs aren't going to give up. But SMU is very much, in a better spot than it was. They were able to have him on campus a couple times and smooth things over and get things back on track there. And I don't necessarily think he's on flip watch at this point, but of course it is recruiting. You never know. You have Javion Holiday, Duncanville cornerback, who's been locked in from the get-go. Cam Cullins, out of the state of Georgia, one of 2 defensive linemen from the Peach State that SMU has on board. He's locked in, said he's not taking other visits. He actually canceled a Georgia Tech official visit. Elijah Pratt, safety at IMG Academy, he's locked in. Drew Hill, I think every single SMU post on Twitter comes with a pony up from Drew Hill out of Corona Centennial, California. Jacob Mayaba, locked in out of Santa Margarita Catholic in California. Jalen Shivers also shut down his recruitment, didn't take other visits, at least as of now. Nathan Tillman is the one that we're watching. He's at Texas right now. By the time this podcast is up for about an hour, I'll have an update on him, kind of him setting the table for that Texas visit, which is a big offer. But he told me SMU and Utah are the ones that are battling it out. SMU making sure everything's okay with him, everything's all good. I'm not necessarily worried about Utah in that recruitment. He said Texas isn't in the mix until I get down there and visit and see what all this hype is about. Now, he could walk away from that visit and Texas end up being in the mix and flipping him. I'm not shutting that down. But I say all of this to say, and we haven't even gotten to the guys who are still uncommitted, recruiting is just different now. There's social media, there's coverage from multiple recruiting services, and kids say things and they might not tell the whole story. There are kids that are over-offered early who will only mention those big schools where in reality, maybe they're not even being recruited by them anymore. So when you hear programs recruiting kids while they're battling other big programs, that's not always the picture. That's not always reality. And when you see a prospect like Michael Turner, who told us SMU was leading, Michael Turner, the 4-star running back who on 3 RPM picks rolled in for, rightfully so. We thought, hey, this kid might be getting close to a decision. He said SMU's the leader. Well, on Friday, he told me what is kind of matched up in terms of his actions. He's taken other visits. He's more open to these other schools. He doesn't have a leader. And that doesn't mean that SMU ends up not getting him. But it just is reality where there are some prospects that will end up taking more visits and things change from what they're saying. And honestly, Michael Turner, him saying SMU's the leader, the way how quiet he was about his recruitment, and then, oh, by the way, his teammate Xavier Johnson quietly flipping to Memphis, it just doesn't match up in terms of what he was necessarily saying. Like, it's almost like he was kind of placeholding, it seemed like, in a way. But, like, he didn't commit to SMU. He's not somebody that has been a pillar of easiness when it comes to covering his recruitment. He's had Baylor in the mix. He's had Oklahoma State where he took an official visit. He has he took the official visit to Baylor this past weekend. He's probably going to Missouri this coming weekend. He's got ties to the Tigers. And he's also looking at a trip to Utah, while at the same time, he's planning on making a commitment in mid-July. So if you're sitting here looking for a what's changed or, oh, what's wrong, it's not what's wrong. Like, that's just how recruiting can go at certain times. And I say all of that to add on that SMU target Dremeco Green, who SMU is recruiting against programs like TCU, which just hosted him, Minnesota, which just hosted him. There are other programs from the Power 5 ranks in the mix for him, and he drops the top 6 and he says commitment coming soon, and SMU's not on it. Well, guess what? It's not always what things seem, and SMU's in the mix here, in my opinion, with Dremeco Green. And there are very few prospects a cycle that drop a top list and they end up going to a program not on that list soon after that. Javion Holiday kind of played a misdirection with his commitment, for example. Personally, I think Dremeco Green's doing the same. And if SMU gets Dremeco Green, they get somebody who at this point is a very, very good prospect who has tested well this offseason, who has been giving SMU good vibes since its official visit. And he's gone on to take other visits. And then SMU carries the day if they can get him on board, of course. But that's just to show you how interesting this recruiting thing can be. And Ty Hawkins hasn't flipped. We'll talk about Ty Hawkins and where things stand. But he hasn't flipped. It doesn't mean SMU's not still in the mix, which he just went on record this morning saying SMU's in the mix for him. And SMU's still calling him, and they made a good impression on their official visit. And TCU is going to host him this weekend. And they're going to have to step up in a big way to match what SMU had done for his official visit. Ty Hawkins got taken out to Monarch. If you're from Dallas or live in Dallas, Monarch is. I told Ty, I was like, wow, that's like a every other or every few anniversaries type of dinner that you went to. Pretty strong spot there. They wined and dined him and showed him a lot on his official visit, and TCU will have to match that. I don't think talking to Ty, there's any doubt that he likes Dallas more than Fort Worth. I mean, the audio on that one didn't lie. It was very much, they're kind of different cities for sure. And there's a lot to like about what SMU's selling him on. And there's NIL opportunities too. So TCU's going to have to come with it this weekend. And if he ends up sticking, then you know what? Good on TCU. Whatever they were able to do NIL-wise to make him kind of regain that comfort level, feel better about where things stand, and end up sticking with a place that he's been committed to for over a year, then that happens. And SMU can go out. They've had a couple quarterbacks on campus that they're evaluating and they're looking at, and they've gone down that road with those guys, and they'll be ready to move on him if that's the case. But it doesn't mean that SMU's not doing a good job or there's no momentum. And somebody on the board was saying it's been over a month since the commitment. Well, it's pretty much matched up with exactly kind of where most things I laid out in May were standing. If you didn't come away with commitments from mainly that May 17th weekend, which they did. They got guys on the 10th. They got guys on the May 17th. They got the double digits. I said, if you get guys on campus in June, those guys are going to set commitment dates, most likely later on in the summer. It's just how it goes. And there are multiple top SMU targets. I was talking with a source the other day, and they said, well, we're going to look up around middle of July, and we're either going to be celebrating a run that we expected and hoped for because we put in a lot of work, or we're going to have a ton of spots to operate with in the transfer portal and senior eval guys. That's the reality. And that's a lot of colleges. They can come up snake eyes in July with some of these guys. And that's not ideal and not what SMU is counting on at this point. And I just get a sense that SMU is poised, though, to go on a little bit of a run here. And we'll be tracking it at ontheponyexpress.com, which we're going to talk about some of those upcoming decisions here for SMU targets. But first, guys, I got to remind you guys about our friends at StatusJet. StatusJet.com. Reach out to David Henry and his team to get you guys hooked up with everything you need to know about private jet travel and why they can plan the perfect trip for you, both for family trips with friends. You can go to some incredibly remote destinations by way of StatusJet. And maybe when you split it up among friends or business associates, maybe it makes sense. Maybe it is the way to travel for you. And especially when you use the code PonyUpACC, You can get that discount on a round trip flight. Talk to them about the option and see if it makes sense for you if you're looking to splurge on a trip. And there's always the fall when SMU football gets going, or maybe a good basketball out of conference game. Status jet might be the way to go. You could save on hotels. You can go in and out the day of and do all of those things. If you're, looking to, again, make it a trip for the ages, reach out to Status Jet, proud supporter of SMU Athletics, and on theponyexpress.com. Excited in a couple weeks to tell you guys about a new partner with On the Pony Express as well. So keep an eye out for that when July comes around. So SMU has multiple targets that are now set to announce decisions this coming month, whether it be July 1st, whether it be maybe late June. We're going to see some of these targets that SMU has had on campus make decisions. And I want to lead off with Ty Hawkins. And the reason why is not to belabor that SMU is in it, not to try to pump it up, because right now it's in a total waiting game. But I get asked about him all the time, or I get asked, why hasn't he done this? Why hasn't he done that? Well, Ty Hawkins is fresh off of going to his sister's graduation at Stanford from law school. She did her undergrad at SMU. And so obviously that's a tie there for Ty. And then he's now at the Elite 11 finals. So flew all the way back to San Antonio and then flew all the way back out to LA. For that big opportunity for Ty to make a statement. He's already a top 100 prospect on 3, top 10 quarterback in the country for us. He's got a chance to make a statement this fall as a senior, and he'll get a chance to do that, obviously, at the Elite 11 finals. And then he flies back and goes on his TCU official visit. And the Frogs, Sonny Dykes, Kendall Briles, they'll get a chance to sit down with him, answer a bunch of questions. And over the course of a year, and this is where things really can be interesting here, Ty has been committed to TCU for a year now. If he got done with his SMU official visit and he wasn't feeling it, probably would have just said, you know what, I'm committed to TCU. Even Chad Simmons today dropped a story with Ty, and Ty said, look, things are great with TCU, had a good conversation with Sonny Dykes, but left the door open. I kind of felt like, all right, I knew Chad, I knew the national guys around the Elite 11 finals would be doing these previews on these prospects that are getting ready to camp at the Elite 11. And I said, this would be one to watch here in terms of, here's an opportunity for Ty Hawkins to say, I'm shut down, excited for the official visit this weekend. And, we'll be, whatever funky town and this and that, and ready to be, recruiting for the Frogs this weekend. I mean, he didn't do that. And he's got now a chance to obviously come back to TCU and see it again and spend time around the program. But after a year, I feel like SMU had a chance to, or Ty had a chance to shut it down, and he didn't. And so we'll be watching that closely to see if he does indeed shut it down after his official visit this weekend. I mean, that's what SMU is not hoping for. That's what TCU is certainly hoping for. We'll be keeping an eye on it, but it's just a wait and see mode. I mean, he's had a lot going on in his life, and he had an opportunity to say, I've shut it down and I've done all those things in that regard, but he did not. And so we will continue to track it. And if he dials up SMU one day and says, hey, I'm out, thank you, but I'm sticking with TCU, we'll let you know, because I don't want to track it any longer than I need to. And so, that's the latest with Ty Hawkins. But SMU does have some other prospects that are still out there when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. Scott Simons and his staff has really stacked their board very well. And there are a trio of prospects, could end up being more, but a trio of prospects right off the bat that SMU is going to be awaiting a July 1st decision from. And one of them, Caleb Burns, one of the top linebackers on SMU's board. You see the on 3 RPM reflecting that SMU on 3 RPM pick that we put in for a minute. He's set to announce on July 1st. He's been to Houston, been to TCU, been to Baylor in the past. I just really like where the Mustangs stand here. Again, I think just he's, from what I understand, just giving them good vibes, giving them all the right things in terms of what he should be saying. And, again, Maurice Crum is one of the better recruiters on this staff. I think he can beat out the Bears and Texas Tech and the Cougars for Caleb Burns. We go out to California, where SMU has a chance to add another 4-star prospect to this recruiting class. Chinedu Onyeagoro, one of the top edge prospects in the country. He had 21 sacks as a junior, really talented prospect. He's set to make his decision July 1st as well. And for Chin, he is best friends with another top target for SMU, and that's Mark Ihenakor. I'm going to talk with them and probably get a little help on the pronunciation, but both are announcing July 1st. They both grew up together, childhood friends, have a chance to go to the same college. Mark was at Oklahoma this past week for a visit and has been to Arizona State, has been to a couple other programs. He canceled his Washington official visit, and I believe Chin did not have one planned. I could be wrong, but nonetheless, I think they end up at the same program, and I just, that's what I'm thinking at this point. I would be surprised if it's not SMU at this stage. Chin is down to Florida, UCLA, and Washington, and we'll be keeping a close eye on this one. And look, I think for SMU, they've got an opportunity to land two guys that have been high on their board for a while that solidify the future of those positions. If you can get Mark and Caleb at linebacker, you get Chin at edge, that really tees you up pretty well for the future at the edge and linebacker position. Ricky Hundley, though, is still working on his secondary room. Obviously, Scott Simons will have to keep on Nathan Tillman and his safeties, of course, trying to keep that group of 4 together. But Ricky Hundley also having to fend off some Power 4 programs for Zay Gentry recently, but had him on campus, had a good time there. He's back locked in. Kobe Foreman is a longtime name for SMU fans on the recruiting front, and he is also getting closer to a decision. And I think if he makes his decision and sticks with kind of what we've been feeling on this one, that he will be a Mustang. He's set to announce his decision on the 4th of July, which is always a recruiting analyst's nightmare. But as of now, he is the only one expected on the 4th of July. Again, those other ones are on July 1st. So we'll be keeping close tabs on Kobe Foreman. I've had my on 3 RPM pick in there for quite some time now, as SMU has made him a priority early on. And I really do feel like SMU will win out on that one in the end. A couple guys who I'm not expecting at SMU, Smith Orogbo, the top 100 edge prospect. I think he announced he's committing soon. Didn't include SMU in his final schools. And we will be seeing some decisions come soon. Another one that I wanted to note here for SMU is Devin Ferris out of the Houston area. I put my on 3 RPM pick in for him. I think he ends up a Mustang. I think they've done a really good job recruiting him. So he would add another piece to the offensive line room. For Garen Justice, he's got 2 commitments already, and they're shooting for another big one. Obviously, Lamont Rogers is a 4-star offensive lineman that officially visited SMU on that May 17th weekend, but one that has really quietly become more of a SMU target is Dramad Odoms, who did officially visit to Purdue. Again, quiet, kind of a quiet guy, released a statement actually talking about how he had been too quiet in his recruitment. And SMU right after that statement was released, hosted him for an official visit. And I think for me, watching, Purdue come into the mix here, that's one to certainly watch. They've been able to kind of beat SMU here and there for prospects. They had one of their class of 2025 prospects from Lamar High School up on campus with Dramad Odom. So he was able to bring a friend up there. So SMU is really in a battle for another top 100 prospect in Dramad Odoms. He's one of the more intriguing prospects this cycle, just because he's got a top 9 of Michigan, Missouri, Texas A&M, Oregon, Purdue, Ole Miss, SMU, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. But we just don't know too much about him. He just keeps things close to the vest. He's now taken 2 visits from what I can tell. I'll be interested to see if he pops up on a campus this weekend to take another visit elsewhere. But I expect SMU to be in this right until the end. And he's one that I feel like you could bet on him. Committing it at almost any moment when it comes to his recruitment, just the way it's been so far. But he's another top 100 prospect that SMU is firmly in the mix for. And all eyes kind of on Kamorian Morgan. He goes to Texas A&M this weekend. The Dallas South Oak Cliff prospect is wrapping up his official visits. It appears Texas, Baylor, A&M, SMU all in the mix here. Again, has really kept things close to the vest, but he's one that SMU's invested a lot of time and energy into. I'm really intrigued to see if they can pull this one off. He's, again, been on their board for so long. And I think this will be one to really keep a close eye on when it comes to SMU. And if they can get him on board, that would be pretty much a legendary land for SMU, a top 100 sock kid staying home. That would be, in terms of the recent history of SMU football, one of the biggest recruiting statements, as Baylor and A&M both are battling for him. And Texas has been firmly in the mix there as well for quite some time, but we'll see what happens with Texas. He's just kept it really close to the vest, and that's the reality of it. So it's hard to get a read there, but SMU firmly involved there. And then lastly, I know he doesn't have a profile picture, but Tyrone Winslow, big defensive lineman out of Louisiana. SMU was really impressed with him when they brought him in for an official visit this past week. He was on the midweek visit with Ty Hawkins, as well as Dylan Battle, who I don't think SMU ends up pressing for. But he's a big guy. He's all of the 6'5", I was told that he's listed at. And so maybe he shuts things down here and makes that decision soon. So a lot of defensive prospects that SMU is after that are nearing decisions. And so we'll be keeping a close eye on them. And finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a big-time wide receiver that SMU is after, and that's Jalen Cooper, one of the top prospects on SMU's board. He continues to kind of go down that road of getting closer to a decision as well, from what I understand. And so it wouldn't shock me if he makes that decision here soon. And SMU is really hoping to get him on board and go from there. They did offer a new wide receiver, Carterius Brown, out of Arlington Seguin after a private workout, which after Xavier Johnson flipped and a couple other receivers committed elsewhere kind of makes sense. But SMU is kind of in that battle with Baylor and some other in-state programs to try and reel in Jalen Cooper and Taz Williams. Taz Williams getting closer and closer to his decision as well. And so we'll be keeping a close eye on Taz. He's one of the top receivers in the country, and we'll be getting closer and closer to his decision as well. I think it could very well come down to SMU or Michigan. He does have a Penn State does have a Penn State visit coming or just took it. He just took his Penn State official visit, I believe. So Penn State at least in the mix there, but I do think it comes down to SMU and Michigan. I just think Texas A&M has some other wide receivers that are maybe higher on the board, but SMU made the Final Four with Michigan, Texas A&M, and Penn State. He is going to announce his commitment on July 13th. So something to keep an eye on. He does go to Michigan this weekend for that official visit. But like I said, guys, this is that time of year where guys are setting their commitments. Guys are starting to make those decisions. And if you don't make them in the beginning of, May and jump on board early going into your visits, you ride out your recruitment most likely as you plan to just see what everybody has to offer. You're going to camps sometimes, you're going to different official visits, and you don't want to necessarily make a decision off that visit high. Like Nathan Tillman, he's going to go hear out Texas, and we'll see. He might vibe with it. He might not. I know it's a huge offer. That's just me. I've covered recruiting now over a decade. Unfortunately, I'm getting older in that regard. But I've seen a lot of stuff, and these guys, as the industry and as the recruiting calendar has changed, it's all evolved into just a crazy beast. So we'll be tracking it all for you at ontheponyexpress.com, which is a good reason why you should subscribe for just $1 for your first 2 months using code SMU1. That's SMU, the number 1, to get all the intel you need on the Mustangs. But we did say we were going to talk about SMU basketball, and they are hosting a big official visitor beginning on Tuesday. And it is Arthur Kaluma, from Kansas State. He is one of the top available transfers in the transfer portal. And Andy Enfield and his staff, as they get ready for a big run of hosting underclassmen and things like that, trying to get their footing with some of these soon-to-be seniors that will be setting up official visits soon, they're looking to finish up that last roster spot. And so John Rothstein, who had Andy Enfield on the College Hoops Today podcast with him, did break the news that Arthur Kaluma is headed to SMU for a visit. Our Joe Tipton chimed in at ontheponyexpress.com, and Joe is as in the know as anyone on basketball recruiting and transfers. And look, you got to like where SMU stands for the 6'7"-ish, 225-pound wing who in 33 games with Wildcats last year averaged almost 14.5 points per game, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. He transferred in from Creighton and provided 5 double-doubles and had 20 points or more on 6 occasions last year for Kansas State. He was a 4-star prospect, so highly regarded. I think if SMU can get this one across the finish line, that would be huge. There aren't it's not perfect in terms of Arthur. He's got some boxes that SMU needs to have checked off, and that's why they're bringing him in, and it's not a sure thing. He's been tied to some big programs, but SMU is hoping that everything works out and they can get this one across the finish line, because he would provide a big boost for that SMU roster and finish it off in a big way. So SMU basketball, this is where the time of the calendar comes where SMU football kind of hopes they're finalizing things in terms of their summer commitment run, and SMU basketball is just starting to heat up in that regard. So be sure to subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com. We appreciate all you guys who subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you catch the podcast at. But it is a fun time of year. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast and also spread the word about the site. We're closing in on 900 subscribers. We've added, I believe, about 25 this month already. So nice little growth spurt for the site as the first season of ACC play for SMU as a university draws nearer. We'll be there to cover it all for you guys. So hope you guys jump on the site and enjoy it. We will catch you guys later this week with another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to OnThePonyExpress.com for more coverage.